Ever wondered if you can actually make $600 fixing a bumper, even when it's cold outside? Well, my business has repaired thousands of bumpers and generated over $14 million in revenue. And yes, even when it's cold outside. And I've figured out a process that works right in someone's driveway. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I do a simple bumper repair in winter, step by step, so you can earn real money all year round, even if you've never done this before. All right, we're at the customer's house and we've got just a simple bumper blend today with no plastic filler. So right now, this is going to be a cold weather edition because as you can see here on my watch, it is 39 degrees outside. So the high today is going to be 45 degrees. Now in cold weather, there's different ways that you can keep everything warm. You can get out your heat lamp and you can put it on the substrate and you can get that warming while you're getting your trailer and everything set up to do the repair. Also, you can be warming your chemicals overnight at your house inside of your trailer to keep everything nice and warm so it's all good to go. I get asked all the time how you paint in cold weather, and to be honest with you, it's not really a lot different than just painting in warm weather, right? You just keep your chemicals warm, keep the substrate warm when it's really cold, and really the only difference is it takes things slightly longer to flash and to cure, and I use a heat gun anyway. Even in warm weather I use a heat gun, so there's really not a lot of difference. And then the only other variable is your activator or hardener that you're going to use in your clear coat. Other than that, everything's really basically exactly the same. All right, so I always like to put a tarp underneath of where I'm working so I don't get and I don't spill anything on their driveway and get overspray on there on the concrete. And I'll go ahead and put a tire cover on the tire as well. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do in any repair is we're going to clean. We want to get all the wax, all the grease, all the contaminants, silicones. We want to get everything, particularly the actual damaged area, but then all of the surrounding areas as well. I like to clean. So I always start with the damaged area first, and then I'll move beyond the damaged area. So, and also anywhere that I'm going to tape and paper, I always like to clean just to make sure that the tape is gonna stick. So what you want to do is just take your wax and grease remover. You're going to spray it on the towel, just cleaning really, really well with the wax and grease remover. All the plastic trim, because if this has any contaminants on it, dirt, silicones, wax, grease, all of that could affect your repair, and we don't want that. So we just want to make sure we do a really good job of thoroughly cleaning the entire area. Plastics. Hey, I just wanted to pause this video for a quick second. You're watching me fix this bumper and make $600 to $800 in just a couple of hours. And if you're thinking, man, I wish I could do that, then this is for you. I created a complete program that shows you exactly how to learn these repair skills, how to get customers, and build a six-figure mobile paint business from scratch. Just click the link down in the description to learn more. And now let's get back to the video. Plus we have to tape all of this off. And so we want to make sure that our tape is going to stick. And now with this, I'm actually doing a blend on this bumper. And so I'm actually going to be blending. As you can see, the damage is right here on this corner. It's very minor. And so, but I do have to allow room to actually blend out my base coat. Okay. So I'm going to, and I don't want to get base coat or a clear coat past my blend line. So I'm going to choose an inconspicuous spot on the bumper down here where it's the smallest area, and it's a perpendicular blend line. So you don't want to be blending on horizontal surfaces. So I'm going to be blending right here on this vertical surface. It's a bumper, obviously, and I'm going to do it several inches down from, well, really a couple of feet down, 2 to 3 feet down from where the actual damage is. And so I really want to make sure when I'm cleaning with wax and grease remover that I'm also cleaning especially where I'm blending, and then even beyond where I'm blending, so that when I go to use my blender, I don't have any issues. All right, now that we got everything thoroughly cleaned with the wax and grease remover, I always like to start taping just because when I'm sanding, I don't want to hit anything that I'm not supposed to hit. So I just go ahead, it's got to be taped anyway. So I just go ahead and I start taping. If the damage, I mean, really, I probably don't need to worry about it that much here because it's not really next to anything that I'm going to hit. If you're concerned about if you have to do a fill, then you can go ahead and start sanding and get it prepped for your plastic filler. And that way that can be curing while you're taping. So there's different things you can do in a mobile environment. Like if you're not in a hurry, well then don't worry about it. If you need to work a little bit more quickly and efficiently, maybe you can do something like that. So while it's curing, you can be taping. So it's kind of just finding efficient ways to work and go a little bit quicker. So when we're taping, okay, obviously we want to tape and paper anywhere where we don't want to get overspray, whether a base coat or a clear coat. Also, a little tip. Today we don't have any wind, which is nice. So you don't really need to worry about positioning the car to take the overspray away from the car. But if, let's say, the wind was blowing west to east here, so you would position the car so that it would take the clear coat and a base coat and clear coat overspray away from the vehicle. So it's just a little tip. But we have no wind today, so I'm not going to worry about it. So I'm just going to go ahead and start taping. And I typically like to be, I'm doing this area here. And so I'm really want to make sure that I'm not getting overspray this way or down the vehicle. And really, guys, people freak out about overspray. If you think about it, like I try to use an analogy like a humidifier. So you ever run a humidifier and you put water in it and literally an hour goes by and you look at it and like it doesn't look like any water's gone down in the tank. It's because the atomization is so fine. When you see this overspray, if you were to condense that down into the actual liquid that is in the air, it would be a half of an ounce, okay, if that much. So when you're mixing up your clear and you're spraying, most of it's actually going on the substrate. And yes, you do have some overspray, but it's probably droplets of overspray. It's not very much at all. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get this taped up, and then I will start sanding out the damage. All right, I've got everything taped off, all the plastic trim, and I'm just gonna run paper across there in that way. And then I'm gonna run paper all the way down from the driver's side door there and just straight across that front and basically create like a wall so that overspray isn't going to go and get on the hood. So I'm going to go ahead and paper everything up and then we can start on sanding out the damage. All right, one little tip I forgot. Since the paint codes on the majority of vehicles are somewhere in the driver's side door, either on the door itself or the door jamb, and on Hondas, they are on the door. So I'm going to, before I paper across the door, I'm going to go ahead and get the paint code so that I don't have to remove all the paper and it's going to mess everything up. All right, on this particular bumper, it's super easy. There's literally no gouging. It looks like somebody probably was backing out of a parking space or something and just rubbed across the bumper and removed the paint. So there's no dents, there's no gouges, there's no scrapes. So in this instance, typically, if I was going to sand damage out and use plastic filler, I would start with 180, but because all I'm doing is just removing, basically trying to feather out the edges of this damage, I'm just going to use 320 and just feather everything out to get it ready for plastic adhesion promoter and then primer. And I did want to mention too that anytime that you're sanding, you want to always make sure that you're using your respirator because you don't want to be breathing in sanding dust. And I always wear gloves too because I want to keep the sanding dust off of my skin. All right, so I've removed the damage with the DA. I always like to do that first, let the DA do the work for me. And anytime you're working on edges like this, so sharp edges, I think I mentioned this in another video, but if you keep going with a DA on these edges, you'll just keep chasing it all the way down the edge. I mean, you could end up all the way down the entire bumper if you keep going. So once you get the damage sanded out, and these areas here have been feather edged pretty well, but I like to take the 320 that I was using and go ahead and just put it on like a soft block or by hand and actually just feather edge out these areas on this edge. So we keep this area contained to here instead of getting all the way down the bumper and creating a much larger area that we have to prime. So I just wanted to mention too, I didn't talk about this. I've talked about it in other videos, but when I say feather edging, okay, you can see like the clear coat layer and then the base coat layer and then your primer. And what you don't want is you don't want sharp edges from where it goes from the bare plastic to the primer to the base coat to the clear, because that's what's called mapping. So when you go to put your base coat on and your clear coat, you'll actually see the outline of the repair. You do not want that. So when I say feather edging, you have to make sure you create like nice layers, feather edging out all these edges. And so then when you go to do your primer, your base coat, it'll look perfectly smooth. You won't see any mapping. All right, so I'm just gonna blow this off, the sanding dust off really quick with my blowgun because I'm getting ready to scuff with my sanding sponge, which is the equivalent of about 600 to 800 grit. And I don't want to clog up that sanding sponge immediately with sanding dust. So I just like to go ahead and blow it off. Plus, whenever I'm blowing, I always blow off my tarp as well, or the ground where I'm working. So actually before we started, I blew the driveway off. And so basically, I just am trying to constantly keep my area free of dust and debris is all I'm doing. All right, so now that I've got it blowed off, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my sanding sponge and I'm gonna go ahead and scuff the entire area that I'm gonna be applying base coat and clear coat. And we'll talk about the blend line here in just a minute. Yeah, when you're using your sanding sponge too, just a little tip, anywhere where you're gonna blow clear into seams, you wanna make sure you get in those seams with the sanding sponge and you kind of just shove it in there and it gets all the edges, okay? So you don't actually have to R&I the bumper to do this. And also I wanted to mention too, this kind of goes along with what I was talking about earlier, but I get asked a lot about painting in cold weather. It seems to be a concern for a lot of people. And my guys have never stopped working. They work all year round. And you can work in the 20s, you can work in the 30s. You and like I mentioned earlier, you can use your heat lamp. I'm not doing it today. It's already 40 degrees. It's fine. I mean, to me, once you get moving around anyways, it's warm. My chemicals are fairly warm. And so I'm not really going to worry about it today. And like I said, I always use my heat gun, but there's different things that you can do to work in the cold and to be able to work year round doing this. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's dependent on where you live. Okay, if you're living in Alaska, this might not be a situation where you're going to be able to do this. Anyways, whenever you have a day where you need to reschedule or something unexpected happens, or it's like 17 degrees outside, just use that opportunity to go and work on your business. Now, I have painted cars when it was 20 something degrees outside, and it can be done. So if that's a concern of yours, I hope that that helps to kind of squash those fears or reservations that you have about working in the cold. So like I mentioned earlier, these sanding sponges are the equivalent of about 600 to 800 grit. They're 600 when new, right? And then as you're using it, it probably goes down to around 800 grit. And so what I like to do with my blend line, there's different ways to do blends, guys. Some people, and I've done it in other videos, where you can stop short with your scuff pad and then you can use 1500 grit to go that last little bit and get to your edge. What I do is by the time I'm scuffing, right, like I just said, this starts off as 600 and then it ends up about 800, to 1,000 grit. And so what I like to do is, like I said, I'm going to blend down here at this narrow edge before the license plate and the smallest part of the bumper. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scuff to this natural body line right here where the headlight ends, okay? And I'm just applying like normal pressure, just creating a nice line. I still have to get under there. But this last little bit, this last few inches, I'm just going to lighten up my pressure, okay, for my blend. And I'm just going to create a line right here, this natural curvature of the bumper. And that's going to be where I blend my clear coat. All right, now I've got the entire area that I'm going to apply base coat and clear coat. I've got it scuffed. I stopped my hard scuff about right here, and then these last 6 inches, I went lighter pressure with my sanding sponge, and I'm gonna use the smallest area, this bumper right here, as my blend line. So this is the hard line that you do not want your clear coat to pass, okay? So you don't want to be, when you're spraying, I'll just go ahead and go over this now, even though I'm not spraying yet. But as you're spraying, you don't want to flick your wrist like this down the panel, okay? You're just gonna stay this way, locked wrist, smooth strokes, and keep your especially your base coat. Do not let your base coat get down this way. And then when you get to your clear coat, this is your hard line. Just don't fling clear, blow clear down past your blend line. You want this to stay super clean. So you go to use your blender, and this line, when you go to look at it, will be seamless and you'll never see it. So I'm going to go ahead and blow off the bumper now and get ready to apply plastic adhesion promoter, because whenever you have bare plastic, you have to apply plastic adhesion promoter. And then after the plastic adhesion promoter flashes, we're going to start applying our high build primer. All right, now before I go to spray my adhesion promoter, I'm going to go ahead, now that I've got it blowed off, I'm going to go ahead and clean with wax and grease remover again, and then we'll be ready for adhesion promoter. All right, now that I've got my adhesion promoter on and it's flashed off, I've shaken my primer for a good 2 minutes, especially in the cold. I always shake the primer cans for at least 2 minutes. And then I've got my heat gun, and I'm just going to apply my high build primer. And I'll usually do 2 to 3 coats of high build primer. It just depends. I'm just trying to get coverage and fill in any sand scratches. The good thing about this repair is I started off with 320, so I don't have any 180 grit sand scratches to be concerned about. So I'm just going to apply the primer, smooth strokes, medium wet, and have my heat gun ready to help flash it. Yeah, and like you see me using my heat gun, I'm not holding it directly on one spot. If you're gonna do that, you gotta pull it back 2 to 3 feet, okay? This is probably about 2 feet right here. But you just wanna keep your heat gun constantly moving. You're just providing nice, even heat. Not hot. You don't wanna bubble up your primer, and you don't ever wanna sit on an area. You're just helping to flash it off so you can scuff it. All right, now that the primer's cured, it only takes about a minute. That's another reason why I use the type of primer that I use in a mobile environment. But and just to let everybody know, I have been doing this since 2011. I've trained 30 technicians. We've generated $14 million in revenue, and I have never had a customer come back because anything was failing. Now that the primer has cured, it's dry, I'm going to go ahead and scuff it with my scuff pad, and I'm just using the same scuff pad that I used earlier. All right, so I've got all the primer scuffed, and so now I'm going to blow off my sanding dust, and then I'm going to clean it with wax and grease remover, and then I'm going to be ready for base coat and clear coat. All right, so I've got the substrate completely cleaned off with wax and grease remover, and I've gone over and mixed up the base coat paint. I use waterborne base coat paint, and you mix it by gram weight. I have all the toners on board, and I mix it by gram weight on the scale. So I got that mixed up. I've loaded up my gun, and when I do base coat, what I'm trying to do is with each successive pass, with each layer, I'm trying to get coverage. Okay, so I really want to get coverage over my damaged area first, and then with each layer, I'll go out just a little bit beyond that damaged area, and then once I get towards the end, I'll really start to blend out the base coat, so you won't be able to see any variation to the eye. Now with waterborne base coat, it's activated by water, so you have to. It's water, and I think there's can't remember what's in it. I think maybe a little bit of alcohol or something like that. But you just want to make sure that you have your heat gun ready, and you don't want to go too wet, or you will run your paint, just like you can run clear. So you're going to keep the gun back about 6 inches or so from the panel, get your coverage, use your heat gun. And with waterborne paint, it looks really weird. It doesn't look like solvent paint. It actually looks a completely different color than what the color of the car is. So it's a little freaky at first, but once you use your heat gun and you flash off the water activator, it'll actually go matte. So before each subsequent coat, you want to make sure that you flash it off until it's matte in appearance. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead now, get my coverage, and then we'll be ready for clear coat. All right, now I've got complete coverage over my damaged area over the primer. Looks really good. And so now at this point, I'm just going to blend out the base coat, and I'm just going to pull my gun back further from the panel. And remember to stay completely away from this blend line. And I'm just going to keep my fan facing that direction away from the blend line and just pull it back further and blend out the paint. And to the eye, you're never going to notice a difference. All right, I got my base coat on. It's blended out nice, looks really good. And now the last step of the process is to clear coat. Now the clear coat I use is a 2-to-1 clear. And since this is a cold weather video, the only difference is that in cold weather, you're going to use a fast hardener or activator. Different companies call it different things. The company that I use for my clear coat calls it an activator. It's a 2-to-1 mix, and it's below 50 degrees, so I'm using fast activator. All right, so I've got my base coats blended out. I've mixed up my clear, and now I'm getting ready to apply my clear coat. It's 2 coats of clear. Your first coat is like a medium wet coat, and then you just want to make sure that it's tacked up before you apply your second coat of clear. And you just do that by, you'll touch a piece of tape and you'll see like a little spider webs. And as soon as you see those spider webs, it's tacked up. And then you can go ahead and do your second wet coat of clear coat. So we're going to go ahead and clear this up. Well, real quick, I always wear goggles when I spray clear, and obviously a respirator. But real quick about the blend line, remember what I said earlier, I don't want to go past this blend line with my clear. So on my first coat, you're going to see I'm going to come to about this area here. And then I'm going to, on the second coat, once I get to this area, I'm going to pull my gun back a little further from the panel. There's a couple of different ways to do it. You can reduce your clear down for this last 4 to 6 inches, getting towards your blend line. I personally don't like to do that because it's a lot easier to run reduced clear, especially in the cold. So what I do to compensate is I'll pull my gun back and I'll keep it sort of pointed in this direction because I don't want to blow clear down past the blend. And then I'll grab my blender real quick after that second coat of clear and just miss that blend line, and it'll be perfectly clear. All right, guys, we got our second layer of clear coat on. It looks beautiful. It flowed out really well. It's natural, very slight orange peel to match the rest of the front bumper. So it looks like a factory repair, or a factory bumper rather. And you can see my blend line. You can see where I marked it as that's the end of my blend line, and it's crystal clear. There's no haze. It's perfectly smooth like glass. So if you're watching this thinking, man, I would love to learn how to make money doing that, then don't miss this next video right here where I break down exactly how to start your own mobile auto body and paint business from scratch.